10 years ago today, only a few months into making reviews on YouTube, I wanted to do something for Stitch Day, a day to celebrate one of my all-time favorite characters and franchises marked by his original experiment number, 626. I decided to make a video about a very obscure yet controversial piece of that franchise, the Stitch anime, and how I thought it was good actually. I could not have predicted not just how much that video would take off, but how it would start a tradition, which was pretty easy to maintain because I know a shameful amount about this really big franchise. By the time I got to the movies, I figured the big videos would end with Lilo and Stitch. Even though I went a bit out of order, that felt like the natural stopping point. But almost as soon as I reached that endpoint, a new obstacle appeared. A final boss, if you will. On May 23rd, 2025, Stitch returned to the big screen. And I knew, right then and there, that I would be covering it for 62626. Hello everybody, I'm Kate Cass, welcome to our edition of Let's Talk About. Today, let's talk about Stitch Day. Yep, we're doing this. I thought Lion King 2019 would be the only time I'd give one of these remakes a dedicated video, but then Disney had to touch the other thing I really care about. I'm just gonna be upfront, even though I know this isn't an unpopular opinion, I don't like the Disney live-action remakes. I know they make a lot of money, I know they are well-received enough by audiences, and you know what? More power to them, but I just find the practice generally very derogatory and creatively bankrupt. I have not watched all of them, but never have I sat through one of these things and felt, yeah, that was worth doing it again. Not you, dearies, this isn't about you. And the thing is, I'm not necessarily against remaking classics for a new generation. Most of these Disney films were doing that for fairy tales after all. Stories survive by retelling them. But then there's Lilo and Stitch, one of Disney's completely original stories, one of their most successful, and one of the ones I'm most deeply acquainted with. If it is not clear at this point, I am a huge Lilo and Stitch fan of every movie, most of the shows, and what I've read of other material. I am very not normal when it comes to this franchise. Here's a playlist of my receipts. It means a lot to me, and generally it tends to bring me joy, which is why I was very scared of how they were going to tackle the original meaning of Lilo and Stitch through its first ever reimagining, and through this ever disappointing live-action treatment. The biggest thing that concerned me when this was announced was Stitch himself. One of the things I can't stand about these remakes is what they do to the characters they can't get real actors for. The commitment to highly detailed, realistic looks for the more fantastical characters results in these soulless CGI husks that can't pull off nearly the same amount of expressiveness as their fully animated counterparts. Stitch is one of the best designed characters Disney's ever made. It's perfect in so many ways. He's weird and cute, and that's why he's basically millennial Mickey Mouse. So I wasn't looking forward to seeing that design get destroyed for the sake of realism. But, to their credit, they were restrained. They changed very little about Stitch's design for this remake. His fur is lighter and his eyes are a little too small, but they kept everything that was important, and he does look good. Animation-wise, it's no Rocket Raccoon, but it gets the job done. When they first revealed Stitch in this remake and he didn't look horrible, it did make me a bit more enthusiastic. I can't say I was looking forward to this movie, but I was a little less scared about it. You've heard tons of opinions on this movie over the past year, I'm sure. Passionate to lukewarm, from enraged at certain decisions to pleased with the final product. And I'm gonna be honest, all of those opinions aren't coming from nowhere. And I think it's about time we dive right in, and I tell you what I thought. Let's get a couple of general positives out there first. For one thing, and this was a biggie for me, Stitch isn't the only one who they got right design-wise. Most of the aliens look pretty great. They look almost exactly like the original, and any new ones adhere to the same design philosophies as the rest of the franchise. They have most of the same aliens on the council. The little robot even got a line.
What deranged lunatic would create something like this?
Jumba, Pleakley, and the Grand Councilwoman are a bit more iffy, but from afar they look fine. Another thing that drives me crazy about these remakes is that the people who were involved with the original tend to be actively shut out and have to watch what they created be destroyed along with the rest of us. But this time, they did have some past Lilo and Stitch actors involved with this project. Chris Sanders reprised his iconic role as Stitch, although I swear some of these lines are past recordings.
This is my family. I found it all on my own.
See, Tia Carrera, who is the voice of Nani, Jason Scott Lee, the original voice of David, and Amy Hill, who voices Mrs. Hasagawa, were all invited to take part in the remake as original characters. I do appreciate them reaching out to the talent who made this story work in the first place, respecting their part in this legacy. Some of their characters are a different story entirely, but we'll get to that later. Even some of the new casting choices were great. Hannah Waddingham as the Grand Councilwoman might just be one of the best casting choices these remakes have ever made. That is so perfect. And performance-wise, I really like Billy Magnuson as Pleakley. He's no Kevin McDonald, but he's got a similar energy and I respect it. Zach Galifianakis as Jumba is a complete miss though. I'm sorry. I know I said this was a positive side, but just gonna get that out of the way now. No accent aside, his voice is too high. There's no menace or boisterousness to it. It just doesn't work. But the standout choice, and the best part of the entire movie, is without question Maya Kealoha as Lilo. She's bold and loud and weird while being thoughtful and caring. She's introduced to us by sneaking into a fancy resort and freeing caged chickens. She's transgressional in all the right ways. An absolutely perfect performance. Not to mention, she does a great job working alongside a CG character for a majority of the film, which is hard for any actor to do, never mind a little kid. There's a lot of little antics between the two of them, and they're pretty cute, mainly thanks to her. I don't know what kind of process they had to go through to find this kid, but the search was worth it because they couldn't have picked anyone better. However, like a lot of these remakes, a lot of the great tools they have at their disposal aren't being used to their full effect. The movie does have a lot of structural problems. They made tons of adjustments to the original story and the movie's overall pacing that seem harmless at a glance but fall apart under a microscope. From taking half the time to go through the prologue introducing Stitch despite the movie being half an hour longer, to spending way too long watching Stitch connect the dots to forming his plan to become Lilo's dog. The camera zooms in on that adoption poster 3 times before Stitch shifts into disguise. The former feels like speeding through key world building for the sake of shifting priorities. The latter feels like it doesn't trust kids to get what's going on without spelling it out as clearly as a Blue's Clues episode. I feel like they really sanded down the edges in the dialogue between the two films as well. It's not as harsh or observational as it used to be.
And take long naps and get disciplined, sometimes 5 times a day, with bricks. I've been eating a lot of organic stuff. Sometimes I eat too much, I can't breathe.
Like how Lilo takes all the insults the other kids throw at her without doing anything, but she gets mad and violent when Nani doesn't show up for a recital on time. It's like a more palatable version of Lilo acting out because of her situation in a way that wouldn't start another Lilo is a brat discourse. Stitch also used to be way more vicious in the beginning. He was actively using Lilo as a human shield and wasn't afraid to hurt or be mean to others if they breathed air wrong around him. This might be hard to explain, but Stitch's destructive tendencies just come off as mischief here. That lines up with who Stitch became, even some of the stuff they added, which can be pretty fun, but he isn't at that point yet. He's never even annoyed or disgusted by Lilo's presence. He should still be a clever, destructive monster looking to set his programming in motion, ruining everything he touches. But from minute 1, it's just kind of mindless. It felt like it was making Stitch a more sanitized kids movie protagonist. And that's not wrong necessarily, but it's not where we should be at this point. They have to put Stitch through the arc of discovering himself again. But either because the other side of Stitch is more recognizable these days, or they just wanted to get to the fun stuff, a lot of Stitch's early villain phase is gone. Also, I'm open to being corrected on this, but even though I know there's a lot of gross out jokes in this franchise, I'm 99% sure Stitch has never farted. Until now. Thanks for checking that box, movie. So many times they'll set up a joke from the first movie or a new plotline or character arc of its own, but go nowhere with it. They have the joke of Earth being a mosquito preserve, but not the payoff for why they think they're an endangered species. They explain Stitch's aversion to water over and over again when they only had to tell us twice in the original, and we remembered it was an obstacle for him whenever it came up. They have this awful line from Jumbo that was clearly added in post where he says Stitch is stuck on Kauai when we can see that with our eyes in Stitch's reaction seconds later. The character who might suffer the most from lack of payoff is Cobra Bubbles, played by Courtney B. Vance. Cobra is already kind of a problem because his role was cut in half. He's no longer the social worker, that's Tia Carrera. She does have a line saying a new director is coming in, and you'd think that would be Cobra, but nope. He's got his own separate plot, still very active in the CIA, and looking for proof of alien life. Although it is pretty funny when he tries to pass himself off as a social worker, and Lilo sees right through him.
Your knuckles say Cobra.
You can read, huh?
Yeah, I can read. I'm reading you like a book.
Not having Cobra as a social worker already takes away a lot of the surprise and humor of his character, not to mention how involved he is in the Pelakaya story as a caring yet intimidating authority figure. Instead, he's another person after Stitch, gathering a DNA sample from Stitch to send to his superiors, wanting to expose alien life on their planet. His role goes from a strict yet caring figurehead looming over the entire story to someone who barely has any impact on the story whatsoever. He wants to reveal alien life to his bosses until he doesn't anymore, because they're chill, I guess, and he doesn't want this little girl he barely knows to lose her dog. Even though his lab already analyzed the sample, there's a record of it somewhere, but he's not taking credit for it, so it's fine, I guess. Splitting up Cobra's role into two separate characters is also emblematic of another issue: the extra characters. You'd think with a longer runtime that it would allow characters the audience connected with once before to be expanded upon and given extra layers. But in this case, they add extra characters that bog the whole story down and thus result in everyone leaving less of an impact. Tutu, David's grandmother, is probably the best example of this. I really like Amy Hill's performance, but it feels odd that Lilo and Nani have a wise elder looking out for them. A lot of the drama in their lives before came from them only having each other and maybe David. This feels like giving them a safety net that lessens how dire their situation feels. Needing to give her time in the story also lessens the roles of other characters. David might as well not exist in this movie, despite Capot de Dois giving a charming enough performance. And most egregious of all, Tutu is the one who lets Lilo adopt Stitch, not Nani. Okay, not only is that very irresponsible of her, but that means Nani heard Lilo's wish for a friend she needed so badly and was just gonna leave it alone. Instead of adding things to enhance the existing narrative, they take things away to make room for the additions, and it's just frustrating to watch. Then there's Jumba and Pleakley, which are kind of a weird amalgamation of both of these issues. Pleakley in particular seems fine at first, but gets worse on further examination. It's the complete opposite of how we acted in the original, but I do like that Pleakley is ecstatic to go to Earth on a mission. And Jumba's not nearly as scary as he was before, so there's no reason for Pleakley to get anxious. As you would expect, he gets excited to be involved in everything and anything on Earth, but misunderstands a lot of it. All of this is par for the course, even if it's a different approach from before, so solid adaptation-wise. Plus, he's well animated. It's fast, it's fluid, it's borderline manic, and I think it really suits him. That, mind you, ties into a big problem with Pleakley and Jumba, when they don their disguises. Giving Jumba and Pleakley cloaking disguises to appear human is such a cop-out. The joke with their human disguises was that they were so poor, yet no one ever realized they were aliens. They just thought they looked weird, but wanted to be polite. For a movie with $100 million budget, this feels cheap. And most notably, it means Pleakley no longer has his feminine sense of fashion, an omission that upset a lot of people for understandable reasons. We don't know for sure, but I'm willing to bet this choice came from the executives. The team did try to incorporate it, but it didn't make the cut.
I have had people message me, why is Pleakley not wearing a dress? And I just want to say, I tried.
It's what we wanted all along!
He wears a lot of colorful, mismatched clothes, and when he's first introduced, he's dressed as a cowboy? I don't know, I get what they're going for here, but with Pleakley's understanding of Earth, I figured he'd think a cowboy would be more like this.
Cosmo, haven't you ever seen a cowboy movie?
Oh yeah, I watch the Bovine Adventure Channel all the time.
They tried to keep this aspect of Pleakley intact without doing drag, but we all know what's missing, and it's just depressing. This is a quintessential piece of who Pleakley is and how he expresses himself. There's only one time he has not favored women's clothing, and that was during Stitch and I, the Chinese spin-off. Trust me, once you notice that omission, it's hard to not constantly think about why such a change would be made. I've heard some people say that it's not that big a deal that it was erased this one time, and perhaps on paper it doesn't change much, but it is extremely suspect that they removed this very specific but highly recognized part of Pleakley's character, especially in the current political climate here in the States, and extra especially after Disney had 2 other instances of trans erasure in their projects a few months prior to the film's release. It's a very 3 strikes and you're out situation that left a lot of people frustrated, and I am among them. They also play a lot more into Pleakley insisting that he and Jumba have to become a good team and work together, but in keeping up with the theme here, that doesn't really go anywhere. Mainly due to what they did to Jumbo, which we're gonna have to come back to that. Let's talk a bit more about how they handled our headlining pair. I feel like most of the compliments I've given this movie so far have been linked to Lilo and Stitch. Their actors are great, Stitch doesn't look horrifying, and they do have some fun moments together. Kealoha is acting her little heart out to make her connection with Stitch as sincere as possible, and I could see people being swept away in it. But looking at the larger arc, and especially comparing it to how Lilo and Stitch's relationship originally began, it starts to feel like a paper-thin version of what was an incredibly layered journey for both of them. Lilo acted out because she had a lot of pain she didn't know how to process, but caring for Stitch offered her a place to put all that compassion and understanding, even as the world was falling apart around her. In the remake, Lilo not only loses a good amount of the edge that can make her difficult to love, but also the attempts to navigate their problems as best she can. The second she gets Stitch, she never gets angry or upset again, at least outside of a badass action scene. And I'm sorry, that's a big problem. It takes away a lot of what made Lilo feel like a real kid. And a lot of the more nuanced areas of Stitch's arc seem to be completely gone. There's nothing about questioning his nature, no connection to the ugly duckling and how if he doesn't fit in with this family, he must somewhere else. It's just, he realizes he's bad and wants to be good. Only good people get family, so he doesn't deserve one. Stitch is mildly curious about Lilo's lessons on being good and doesn't really change at all outside of saying sorry once, which feels like an incredibly simplified version of what was such a complex arc before, and it makes me feel like I'm being talked down to. Calling Stitch a service animal is pretty funny though, no, I'm not gonna lie, that was a good one. They speed through both of their arcs, and as a result, remove a lot of the messier aspects of them that made them more complex and relatable. Growing together is what made their story so wonderful, but almost everything difficult for them has been cut, and what remains is kind of fun and cute on the surface, but is ultimately shallow. A similar complaint can be thrown at the relationship between Lilo and Nani, played by Sydney Elizabeth Agundong. Yeah, given what this movie is most well known for, you might be surprised it took until now to bring up Nani, but there's a lot more to talk about, as you can tell. So another recurring element with these remakes is that they try to respond to common criticisms around the original film, or at least the most clickbaity ones, and retool things in these remakes to fix those supposed flaws. And the critique I see the most about the original Lilo and Stitch is that the true heart of the film is Lilo and Nani, and the alien stuff distracts from that. This is ridiculous, of course, but a lot of the choices this remake makes feels like a direct response to that, because Nani gets a lot more screen time, backstory, and attempts at a larger arc with a bigger reward. They gave Nani so many dreams that she gave up on to take care of Lilo. It feels like they make her overly skilled at everything besides domestic stuff. And she seems hourly resentful of that. Like, don't get me wrong, Nani did indeed get a rough break. Her parents are killed, and all the responsibility to keep them afloat falls on her, or Lilo gets taken away by social services, leaving her alone and feeling like she abandoned Lilo because she wasn't good enough, all while still grieving. It's good stuff, if done well. There are a couple of moments of trying to comfort Lilo, and there's a cute sibling moment or two, even reminiscing about their parents, which I really liked, but most of the time, Nani is kind of bitter and unattentive. For a movie trying to show how much Nani's life revolves around Lilo and how much she's given up to take care of her, she doesn't take a lot of the action she needs to keep that up. Animated Nani tried her best over and over again, and things kept getting in the way, usually Stitch. In live action, Nani mopes about how hard things are and can't keep up with the demand. A perfect moment that illustrates this is how they both react after Stitch gets Nani fired.
Did you lose your job because of Stitch and me?
Nah, the manager's a vampire.
I knew it. You know, he didn't even like that job.
I don't want to hear it.
And that happens right before the first mention of Ohana, and Nani's response to that is noteworthy.
Why are trying to go against what Mama and Papa said.
Because we were left behind. All that stuff sounds so nice. It sounds really nice to me too, but that is not reality. This is reality.
In all honesty, I'm not against Nani scolding Lilo here, because Nani is dealing with so much. I'd understand that she'd want Lilo to accept what's going on with her and work together, instead of having to shoulder everything herself while protecting Lilo's own childhood. Is that the right thing to do? Not necessarily, but in the current moment, it makes sense and is an extra layer to their problem I'm not against. What I am against is that Nani never realizes that that might not be the way to approach things with Lilo. Lilo shouldn't have to shoulder the same responsibilities in reality she does, because she is a little child and Nani is not. What was once a solemn reminder that everyone deserves a family even when they're difficult is Nani being annoyed at Lilo for getting Stitch. But I'm gonna be real, Stitch isn't nearly as much of a problem as he used to be. I don't even think the social worker acknowledges Stitch's existence. Among the tasks she does assign Nani to have a better chance at keeping Lilo is to get them both health insurance, which is a really weird plot point to me. Lilo should either be under whatever plan her parents put her on, or her parents were really neglectful and didn't do something that important. So I guess that's where Nani gets it from. During the surfing accident, Lilo doesn't just get put at risk by the attempt to capture Stitch, she needs to go to the hospital. And since Nani didn't get insurance, that means the state basically holds the bills hostage as a way for Nani to give up guardianship of Lilo. But they're only looking out for what's best for both of them, so it's okay, I guess. Mrs. Kakoa is framed as so thoughtful and helpful with her advice, but it comes across as manipulative and gross. The movie very much wants you to feel one way, but paying attention to the events completely contradicts it. Instead of accepting responsibility herself, Nani openly places the blame for all their problems on Stitch. Stitch can't even be blamed for what happened this time, because Nani saw Jumba implicitly antagonize him. The Aloha Oi moment with Nani is the perfect demonstration of the movie wanting me to feel something it has not earned. Just because I loved it before doesn't mean you can just play the song and expect to get the same feeling. But it's one thing to take away an arc, or not do the work to earn the emotional heights of a story on your own. It's another thing entirely to completely reinvent a character's role in the story. And it's here we gotta talk about Jumba. This is another case of filling a void from something cut out from this version of events, because Captain Gantu, the main antagonist of 90% of the entire franchise, is not in this movie.
You know, my good friend Gantu, they were gonna put him in the movie, but, they hate black people, so they didn't let Gantu in. Well, actually, it's kind of like a giant whale thing. Can whales be black? This is a good sandwich.
But without Gantu, who's gonna be the final boss? We gotta have a villain. It's not like one of the themes of Lilo and Stitch is that it doesn't really have villains, just people trying to get by as best they can with what they understand. No. We need a big bad. And who's bigger than Jumba?
You're kidding. You're kidding, right?
Now, to play devil's advocate, I can kind of understand the track this train of thought followed. In the beginning, Jumba had no emotional attachment to Stitch. He was proud of him as his own creation, but would throw him under the bus to secure his own future. But even then, I would never really categorize Jumba as a villain. He has no desire for power or conquest. He seems to only create these evil experiments because he likes to.
You are a bad guy, but this does not mean you're a bad guy.
Over time, like Stitch, Jumba started to see that there could be things more fulfilling to him, that he could care for others, that they could care for him, and that his creations could still serve their primary function while doing good in a greater community. It is one of the most long-lasting, satisfying character arcs in Disney's entire catalog of stories, right alongside his own creation. Let's see how the remake handled this. So, Jumba in this movie is weird as heck because he has this really obvious contempt for anything and everything. When Stitch starts reforming, there's none of the natural perplexity that Jumba had before at seeing his creation defy his programming, but instead, stubborn insistence that what everyone else is seeing is wrong. He knows 626. He designed him, and only he knows what he really is. A monster. He also may have used Galactic Federation resources to create Stitch. I don't know. There's a lot of dialogue in the beginning that implies Jumba freelances for them in some capacity, but it's not very well explained. This time, Stitch is such a valued asset to him that he won't mind his own lab being destroyed as long as he can keep him, and his turn to being the movie's villain starts when the Federation threatens to take 626 away from him. Jumba seems to have a weird amount of contempt for humanity and sentimentality. That could have made make for a fun arc alongside Pleakley, who has nothing but admiration for human life, but that went over their heads somehow. Instead, he gets malicious towards Lilo's memories of her long-gone family, which is pretty freaking rich coming from the guy causing this third act rampage because he wants his science project back. If you're that against sentimentality, just make another one. We know you can. That's why he destroys the Pelikaya's house, that is why he captures Stitch for himself, and that is why he has new plans for Stitch.
Turn you into 6'2".
Oh my gosh!
Oh, off! Whoa!
You don't get to reference them.
Oh my
god! Also, that's not how that works.
I was wondering when we'd get here to see your visceral reaction.
No! No, 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 no! We are not doing this! You are not butchering one of the most clever story expansions ever conceived! This is so infuriating because on the surface, this should be fun. Lilo and Stitch has developed such a large world since the first movie that telling that origin again should offer the opportunity to have little ties and nods to the fact that Stitch is the latest in a long line. But instead, this single development implies that Stitch doesn't have a large hidden family, but that he is the latest improvement upon hundreds of inferior attempts, and that Jumbo will completely restructure him Frankenstein style to try again instead of starting from scratch. Stitch is not the latest experiment, he is all the experiments. I hate to be dramatic, but this offends me. As someone who got into Lilo and Stitch because of Stitch the movie, as someone who has dedicated so much time and love into all of Jumbo's creations, the callous disregard for the innovations that turn this little story into a franchise that they are standing on the shoulders of is astonishing. What should be cute fan service is the moment where the movie was a lost cause for me.
I can't believe I recorded this and I got me shouting the F word at this movie.
Yes.
Oh, did you? I didn't even notice.
Yes, you did.
Fuck you. Oh my god.
This change seems gratuitous anyway, because I don't even know why Jumbo wants to do this. He proclaims no one will be able to stop him in 627. Stop you from doing what? What do you want? Power? Conquest? Bragging rights? What? No matter what, it makes one of Disney's most interesting characters into something so generic. Par for the course for these remakes, I suppose. Both of the action set pieces in the third act are real subpar, too. When Mother's Basement talked about the Netflix Avatar series, he summed up the issue with most live-action remakes rather well.
And that's the crux of the problem with all these live-action remakes. You're pretty much always spending more money to get less of something that looks and feels worse.
And I think the best place to see that with Lilo and Stitch is with the action scenes. The fight at the house has lost a lot of its inventive and quirky tactics. Instead, it was reduced to Jumbo and Stitch exchanging a couple of shots. And it takes Stitch a minute to even do that because he doesn't know how to use the portal gun. Like, bro, what? Are you serious? Doesn't he have the intelligence of 100 supercomputers? Like, that's not a nitpick. They said that, right? And the climactic spaceship race across various Hawaiian locations is reduced to a quick sweep over the beach where most of it goes down in the cockpit of Jumbo's ship. I do like the idea of Lilo sneaking onto the ship and working together to save Stitch. It's just too bad none of them know what they're doing. How did Stitch give her the wrong instructions on what button to press? I thought he could pilot any spaceship. Oh, forget it. I keep forgetting what I'm dealing with. Luckily, the finale has all the movie's problems in rapid succession. Lilo is a native Hawaiian, and yet Stitch can breach the water surface before her. I don't care that she's under debris, that was lame. They dwell for so long on the fact that Stitch cannot swim, even though he doesn't appear to be drowning. They even have a fake-out death that they linger on for a long time. You are not Stitch has a glitch. We are not buying this.
Yeah.
Nobody gets
In
left
the
behind, right? Right, guys?
Ugh.
Right?
Most perplexing of all, though, Nani saves Stitch's life. Over and over again, she refused to go help Stitch, even after Lilo was safe, and yet we're meant to think that her going back is a big, heroic moment. A moment that she has not remotely earned. Like I said, this movie feels like it's meant for all those fans who wanted the original movie to be Nani's story, but this is very much a be careful what you wish for situation. To prove that, let's just skip to the big one. The change that you've all heard of by this point, and the one that outraged people the most. At her family's insistence, Nani takes a full-ride scholarship to go to college to study marine biology in California. But Lilo will be fine because she will be placed in foster care under Tutu's custody. Despite how sentimental and caring they try to make this resolution come across, it is wrong from every conceivable angle. A lot of which people have covered far better. The fact that Lilo is still placed under the care of the state, which is what they were trying to avoid. The fact that Nani goes to a school in California, even though there are far better schools for marine biology in Hawaii, all of which embodies this weird pro-colonial attitude in this movie. That's all true. But I'm gonna focus on one area of it. The Ohana angle. This is an idea fans tend to take very literally. Ohana means family. Family means nobody gets left behind or forgotten. Many feel then that any deviation from that is a betrayal of what Lilo and Stitch represents. My very first time talking about this franchise was me going against this black and white view because it's a common complaint with the anime and how, over the years, Lilo and Stitch grew apart. So why am I for the Ohana going their separate ways there, but not here? It's pretty simple, really. It was earned. I've been saying that a lot in this video, haven't I? So when I say something's earned, what do I mean? Well, in the anime, Lilo and Stitch spent several years together, going through so much while remaining inseparable. They drifted apart through a misunderstanding, but came back together as if no time had passed, knowing they could still love each other while they both have new loved ones to care for who need them more than they need each other, which they wouldn't have been able to do if they didn't grow together. The remake does not do all the hard work to get to that point. It's the script working entirely in Nani's favor to ditch her responsibilities at the very first opportunity to pursue her own ambitions. Being hesitant for a moment, but everyone tells her it's okay, so it is, I guess. I'm not even necessarily against Nani doing something for herself that makes her happier. There was an idea earlier in the movie that would have been a great compromise when she applied to be a surfing instructor. It's her skills in that sport that help her save Stitch too. It wouldn't have been her dream, but still something she loved. But no, we need the most prestigious path possible. The fact that Lilo gives Nani her blessing does not make it okay. The fact that Nani swiped one of the portal guns and can visit whenever she wants does not make it okay. The entire movie is twisting the narrative to reward Nani for no apparent reason at the expense of everything that makes this story so special. Disregarding the bizarre adjustment to the ending, disregarding the erasure of progressive elements that were frankly ahead of their time in favor of giving the government a friendly face, disregarding Jumba and 627, disregarding all of that, I'm gonna get to the biggest fault of this movie. It was the thing I was most worried about when word got around, and unfortunately, my concerns were confirmed right here. Are you ready? If Stitch hadn't shown up, nothing would have changed. The reason the argument that Lilo and Stitch should just be about Lilo and Nani doesn't work is because Stitch is the inciting incident. He escalates their problems, he shifts their priorities, he, in the end, makes their family whole by being an unexpected but equally valued piece of it. Having Stitch as a part of their lives makes them more complete than they were before. Stitch's presence in the remake does not have the same results. No challenges, very few obstacles, and he has no part in shifting the status quo. Tutu and Kakoa could have made this offer at any time. Nothing about Stitch's involvement over the past couple of days inspires this choice in any way. You can hate it all you want on principle, but the fact that if Stitch wasn't a part of Lilo and Nani's lives, they could have wound up with the same happy ending is what ultimately breaks it. Stitch matters so little to how this all resolves that he doesn't say or do anything during this whole final scene. What we are left with is a scattered mess that absolutely did not need to wind up like this. They had all the tools at their disposal to make this story feel as rich and heartfelt as they did before, but went completely off the deep end. Just a small example of what I mean, there's this whole thing they added about Lilo and Nani keeping their parents' room closed off. You'd think that would mean that would go to the aliens later to make room for their new family, but again, nope. Nani's in California, Jumbo's in custody, all of Lilo's guardians are assigned to look after her by some authoritarian system, and Stitch made a cameo in the Elvis costume because that's the extent of his involvement. Yeah, great. That is so great. It's great. What an improvement. What a perfect representation of nobody gets left behind or forgotten. Mahalo, everyone. Again, I should feel something at this scene, and I just don't.
Absolutely nothing. I feel dead inside.
I'm feeling grateful that the movie's over.
Overall, Lilo and Stitch 2025 is a Trojan horse. On the outside, it seems just as cute, quirky, amusing, and heartfelt as the Stitch projects that preceded it. Even I, almost halfway through watching it the first time, was ready to call it not that bad. But as you look inward, you start to realize just how much this version falls apart. Maybe it's me being an overzealous fan, but I looked at this remake through the same extreme lens I have every other thing Stitch is in, and most of the time, doing that enriches the overall experience. Stitch and I was the only exception to that. That one's pretty rough, but not nearly as much as this. The performers are trying their best, but the material fails them in the end. I've seen worse looking remakes for sure, but you can definitely see where the belt was tightened on the more fantastical elements, which diminishes the whole thing, and they somehow managed to make a beautiful location like Hawaii look dull and tired. Plot points and themes are insultingly spoon-fed to the audience and are far less thoughtful than they used to be. It tries so hard to have so many heroic and heartfelt moments, but earns almost none of them, and while I admire the attempts to shake things up, every major change is the worst one they could have made. This video was originally meant to come out after my Sonic 3 review, and they will still be back to back. That was not intentional, but I'm glad it worked out that way, because that helps beat the accusation that I am only angry at this movie because it is not the original, that they dared to change anything. Sonic 3 made several changes to the source material, but most of them took things in exciting new directions while staying true to the themes and events it's inspired by. It is not that they made changes, it is that they made bad changes. Children's media has come a long way since Lilo and Stitch first came out. It can be more challenging, thrilling, and explore relatable obstacles in ways that can resonate with all audiences. Lilo and Stitch could thrive in a landscape like that. Even with how great the story and characters already are, there is more to explore with them. I want to see Lilo get the chance to express herself creatively in a way people might appreciate, try her best to help no matter if it works or not. I want to see Stitch slowly realize that he and this kid aren't so different and bond on a mutual level. I want to see Jumba and Pleakley question their role as observers now that they're walking among humans. I want to see Pleakley grapple with how different his Earth studies are from the real thing and worship RuPaul's Drag Race. I want to see Jumba confront the fact that just because he made Stitch doesn't mean he gets to decide who he is. I want to see Nani find a compromise with her personal fulfillment that works with the circumstances she's wound up in, and maybe get some support from the Federation to house 3 aliens. That would be nice. There are new, exciting things to do with these characters, and it'll probably be another 20 years before we get the chance to try again. But there's one thing I never want to see change. I want Lilo and Stitch to always be about how the world throws difficult things your way, and you might not get to live the life you wanted, but as long as you don't let it take away your compassion, you can find the support you need. That someone will love what makes you special, and you'll become even better by knowing them. How you can still be happy in a different way. Not the message of the remake, which is if you're mildly nice, everything will work out exactly how you wanted. That's the part that hurts the most. This remake takes away all the messy, complicated aspects of the original story that not only made it relatable to those struggling to get by or fit in, but replaced it with something so generic and safe. And that's never what Lilo and Stitch was. It was always a weird outlier. That's the whole point. But this is average, and that's its biggest crime. I do want to end this whole thing on a positive note, and I think I can. A big accomplishment an adaptation can have is making viewers curious enough to check out the source material. For at least 2 weeks after this remake came out, the Lilo and Stitch movies were trending on Disney+. All of them, not just the original. Whether it was nostalgia from old fans or kids discovering a whole new world of entertainment, it shined a light on the truly great pieces from this unconventional franchise. Despite all my complaining, and I can keep going, if a lonely kid watched this movie and it made Stitch their best friend, I think that's wonderful. If you know someone like that, do not let anything I or anyone else say take that away from them. Trust me, I understand how important that is. What a lifeline it can be. If this movie accomplished that for anyone, well, it did something right. but I still don't like it. I'm sorry, I can't. So yeah, those are my general enough thoughts on the latest Lilo and Stitch project. Since I know people are gonna ask, I don't really know what's next for Stitch Day videos, or if there'll even be one for the next couple of years. I know this remake has a sequel on the way, but I'm not sure how eager I am to engage with these remakes anymore. I know Chris Sanders is heavily involved this time, but I'm not quite sure how you clean up this mess, frankly, when they took away all the franchise potential. Regardless, thank you guys so much for watching not just this video, but any of my Stitch videos over the last 10 years. I love this little abomination so much and have been thrilled to get an outlet to share that love with all of you. Aloha for now, until we meet again. Thanks for watching, everyone. Definitely let me know what you thought of the Lilo and Stitch remake in the comments below. That's why the series is called Let's Talk About. And I want to give a very special thanks to my buddies Jinx Productions and Hex Dawn for enduring this movie with me for the first time and letting us record our reactions. I don't think I could have gotten through the whole thing in one sitting without them, especially that last half hour. And I also want to give a very special thanks to my patrons who help support my content, including Jinx Productions and Wait in the Wings. If you'd like to join these fine people in supporting my content while getting cool exclusive perks, you can check my Patreon page at the link in the description, as well as my other social media if you'd like to check any of those. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you guys next time.